Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now quickly I want to take you to the AU headquarters in Addis Ababa. As I told you earlier on, we do have our very own John Jacob Kura who's joining us. John, good afternoon. What is the situation there like? Have all the presidents arrived?
Good afternoon, Abdi Aziz. As you rightly pointed, we're in the neighboring country of Ethiopia, and the capital is Addis Ababa. The big question, of course, as you ask, is whether all the presidents have arrived. I can tell you that a majority of them are here, but of course there are numbers that will keep trickling in because, as you can imagine, the extraordinary summit of the heads of state in the African continent is tomorrow. That's when major business really will be ongoing. But again, today we've had meetings in the sidelines, some of them focusing on the newly established Africa Credit Rating Agency by the African Union. The President William Ruto says it will go a long way in ensuring that Africa gets favorable credit rates because saying, the unfair practices of unfavorably crediting Africa has denied it what you would call rightful deployment. We've also had another meeting, of course, discussing the challenges of conflict in Sudan, and President William Ruto, together with the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, was also in that meeting. Currently, what is happening right now is a closed-door session of the Africa peer review mechanism, and that is heads of state from all countries in Africa, of course those who are here present, discussing the modalities of ensuring that Africa is better off in terms of its negotiations with the rest of the world, and indeed that they bag deals that are what you would say are good deals for the African continent. But of course the interest for many Kenyans, Abdi Aziz, is obviously what is happening regarding the elections of the African Union Commission. What I can tell is that we have big delegations coming here. We have 3 candidates like you would imagine. And of course, as you can see behind me, those are heads of state leaving and delegations from different countries leaving from that. I think now the closed session that was involving the Africa peer review mechanism has just concluded, and you can see them exiting. So the big question, Abdi Aziz, obviously is into the election of the African Union Commission chairperson. We have 3 candidates, one from Madagascar, the other from Djibouti, and the other one, of course, is our very own Raila Odinga. And the amount of lobbying that is in these corridors, and I will tell you, this being my second time in these corridors regarding the election of the African Union Commission chairperson, the intensity of negotiations must be heightened at these very last hours because the last minutes, like they say, can save a dying donkey, and this is what is happening in these corridors, ensuring that there is a right negotiations, talking to those who may be half convinced or not convinced about the candidature of Raila Odinga, to ensure that he bags the votes that he needs to become the African Union Commission chairperson. Abdi Aziz.
We'll let you go, given that this is your second time being there in the corridors of the AU headquarters. Given that this is a particular regional issue, we do have the SADC, we do have the East African unit as well, bloc trying to take this particular seat, given that it is time for the East African community to at least get this particular position. What do you see the play like, following especially what SADC yesterday did in terms of telling all the candidates to vote for the Madagascar candidate?
Abdi Aziz, I knew that question was going to come, and it is interesting because, number one, this is a position that involves a lot of diplomatic negotiations, Abdi Aziz. What you saw yesterday was what you would say a directive of some sort to SADC ministers to vote for the Madagascar candidate. But indeed, who is voting in this election? It is the presidents that represent these countries. So the big question becomes, how will they vote? I want to tell you, irrespective of whether forwarded by a community, the kind of diplomatic negotiations that are involved in the voting and the interests thereof really matter because it is not just about coming from a region. If you remember the other time, that is when Amina Mohammed was the candidate, you realize that some of our neighbors kept off the vote, despite the fact that we come from the East African region. So it really matters, the negotiations that are ongoing here, because it is the interest of that country and what a candidate would present in terms of the interest. It is not just about regions. For example, I'll tell you, the North Africa region is actually looking for the position of vice chair. it will be interesting how and which candidate they will negotiate with and which country they will negotiate with, so that once they vote for them as the chairperson of the African Union, they will also reciprocate by voting for them as the vice chair of the African Union. Sometimes people have brought in the question of religion, Francophone and Anglophone. Religion doesn't play much as a role here, because you remember, for example, when we had the election in 2017, Amina Mohammed professes the Islamic religion, so does Musa Faki Mahamat of Chad, who professes the Islamic religion. But you will also realize that the Francophone, Anglophone factor played a lot of what you would say, participated a lot in seeing the results we had. But again, I want also to see the conflicts in the region. First of all, you have the Sahel region, particularly pits Morocco and West Sahrawi. That will also be a factor in the elections that will happen tomorrow. The DRC conflict will also be a factor in this election. The Sudan conflict will also be a factor in this election as we go to it tomorrow. And countries will vote depending on some of these diplomatic issues, some of these regional issues, sometimes even external global affairs that are outside the African continent will also be at play tomorrow. So it's not very easy to say because there was that call by the SADC Secretariat to support the Madagascar candidate that earns him the automatic 16 votes. I'll tell you, you will be shocked probably when the results comes tomorrow and how the outcome might be. Only that it's not a public vote that you would be able to see who voted this way, but the results could actually shock you in terms of how the outcome comes out. Abdiaziz.
So that is our very own John Jacob Courier, all the way from the AU headquarters. He's keeping a watchful eye, given that the next 24 hours is very crucial when it comes to the voting of the next AUC chairperson. Courier has been there. This is his second time in the corridors of the AU headquarters, and he'll be just giving us the intrigues, given that you do know it is the 11th hour, given that we do have a candidate there in the form of the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, who's contesting it out with none other than Djibouti's Yusuf, as well as Madagascar's Richard. And of course, we'll be bringing you all the live intrigues from Addis Ababa.